Hello, it's Thursday again. It is the infant feeding team for our Facebook Live session on the Oxfordshire Maternity Voices Partnership. And I'm Naomi, this is Alex, my colleague, and we are going to do about an hour session today on anything to do with feeding your baby, really. So if you've got any questions at all that you want to talk about, whether you're pregnant or whether you've got a baby, whether you're weaning, any questions at all about feeding your baby, then we would love to hear from you. If you don't want to hear questions about scans and postnatal visits and your antenatal appointments, they can be for another session with Ask the Midwife, or you can contact your own midwife in your own area and ask her those questions. Things are changing all the time again, and I'm sure next week things will change possibly another time, so we don't always have the most up-to-date information from each department. So direct the questions to the department that's relevant, please. So I can see people there already.
Yeah, me too. I can see
coming in, and we had loads of lovely questions last week. So hopefully you've got lots lined up for us again this week, and it doesn't matter if you've seen it before and it's pertinent to you, but you know, there's only a certain amount we can talk about in breastfeeding, so we go round and round and round talking about it, and we, you know, answer the same question quite frequently. So if you're not sure and we haven't quite got the right answer for you, you can always look at our last ones that we've done there on the OMVP YouTube channel, and you can see all the infant feeding, all the Ask the Midwives, all the other questions from the last year, and you can watch any of those if you want to as well. So that's a really good resource for you if you need anything extra. But please do ask us questions, and we will get through them all, hopefully.
Yeah.
So today we thought we'd do a little bit about pumping. So just talking about how you pump and you know, maximising your milk supply and protecting your milk supply, because quite often you're in hospital in the early days, and then you go home hand expressing, so you haven't got your milk in, you're still in the colostral phase, so you're expressing very tiny amounts of colostrum. And as you go further into your postnatal period, your breasts start to fill up, you find that your breasts get a bit warmer, and you might not have quite got your attachment there, or your baby might have been jaundiced or something like that, and someone's asked you to give your baby more fluid. So what we would suggest, certainly not before 48 hours, we wouldn't suggest any pumping in the first couple of days. So towards the end of the second day, into your third day, we would suggest that you've got a pump. Or if you're getting about 10 mils out of your breast when you're hand expressing, you can probably go to pumping. But if you haven't got that and you're day 2 or 3, then you probably need to start pumping as well. So, and that will just, it's just sometimes a bit easier to do that, to get larger volumes out if the milk's changing. So we would suggest, if you're in hospital for that time and you start pumping, to do what we're doing. But also when you go home, you don't get the support, and you might have bought yourself an electric pump, but you're not really quite sure how to use it. So we just thought we'd go through that and just show you the best technique to manage pumping. So you wouldn't do it if you had colostrum and it was less than 2 days. There's no real indication to do that, because basically you get the funnel for the pump here, and the colostrum will just stick in there and you won't get any of it out. You're much more likely to collect, and if you use a syringe or a tiny little pot, to get the colostrum and collect it more easily. Otherwise you just lose it in this large thing. But actually, if you need it for stimulation, then yes, you do use it, but you may not get very much out. So have you got anything to add about that?
No, I don't think so, to be honest. You know, we do tend to hold off with the pumps. On occasions when we're really struggling to get maternal supply going, we might suggest a pump earlier, but that's not the norm, absolutely. And we've sort of got a selection of pumps to talk about, really, haven't we?
Yeah, so you know, some of you might have got hand pumps at home, and that's absolutely fine. And some people find them really good. This is what we call a hand pump. I don't know what make this one is, but it's just a hand pump.
So the two main ones you tend to see are Amida and are Tommy Tippy and Avent, and that's a Tommy Tippy one. So yes, I mean they're very good for the occasional feed. A mother who's trying to really boost her supply, or pump all the milk for the baby because the baby's not attaching at the breast, will probably do much better with an electric pump. A double pump would be ideal, but these are really good. But it's the key to how you use them is important. So we've got our silicone breast. So it's always worth thinking about oxytocin before you start, and that's going to happen with all of these at any time that you're pumping or even hand expressing. And then with one of these pumps, you're going to want to put it on, and you're going to want to mimic the baby and do quick, 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 quick. You can see it going backwards, quick, 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 quick. And the minute you start seeing any milk coming here, drops of milk, you bring the handle in and you hold the handle. You keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it. Release and go again. And you keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it, and release and go again. So it's the quick start to get the flow and then long to get that milk going. If you keep doing this, you're not going to get the milk, because that's not how a baby feeds. And that fits with all these pumps that we're going to talk about. So if you're using a hand pump out there, slow it right down. As soon as you see the milk coming into the funnel, slow it right down, and really keep that hold. And it's like when you're hand expressing. When you're hand expressing, we ask you to do a bit of massage, make your seat, and then we ask you to come in and hold, and keep the hold, keep the hold, keep the hold. And that's the same with the hand pump. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, remember that oxytocin is a very shy hormone as well, so if you're doing it in a public space, you probably won't let your milk come as easily, and you will certainly find if you've cuddled your baby skin to skin before you do it, you'll find the flow is better, and if your baby's close to you while you're doing it, you will find the flow's even better in the early days. So, you know, massage, as Alex said, but also have your baby close, or do it when your baby's done some suckling as well, and that might well or nipple stimulation, and that might well get the flow a little bit better, but it is very shy, so make sure you're comfortable and warm and unobserved, because you'll get much more from the response if you do that.
Pain relief was also quite
yes,
good
very
as well.
important that you're comfortable, have something to drink, you know, no distractions, and no crying babies, because you'll be very stressed then if that happens. And your best bet is to give your baby food if it's crying, not to. And it may be that you have to pump to get the food out, but actually, you know, try and make it when your baby's more settled. So we've got several pumps. The other one is what we call a lactoline, which quite often the Amida lactoline, and that's one that sometimes the community midwives health visitors have got, and they've got lots of these that they hand out, and the kits are the same. They look like this. This is battery and or electric, so it's very versatile. It's a little pack horse, they're great, and you can buy these over the counter as well, so if you've been used to using one, that might work for you also. The other ones that we use, which you may be familiar with, if you have...
bringing it into the middle.
Bringing it into the middle, but it's not quite sure if we've got enough space for it with the wire. That's as far as it'll come. It is one of the one of the hospital grade ones, which are obviously much more expensive, but it's what we've got in the hospital, and they work very well. They're very expensive though. These are, you know, £1,500, £2,000, some of them, so they're very expensive. But you can hire these as well from the company directly if you wanted to. So you just find them online and organise. I think Madonna do them as well. We're not endorsing any of these brands. This is the ones that we have in the hospital. This one's also in the Amida. And so they're available for mothers on the ward, and sometimes the community midwives have these too, which they can loan out. They're probably not, you're probably not going to get much more out than if you were using one of these. If you have a really good technique, you're probably going to get about the same. Some people find a bit more.
And that's actually the baby of this one. So the dials on this are identical to the dials on this. So if you happen to be with us in the hospital and you've been using this, and then you're loaning this, you're going to know exactly what you're doing.
I think the yellow and white one that's on the Madonna one is digital, so it runs through a program. And some of the cheaper pumps that you can get online on some of the selling sites are digital readouts as well with different things. But I think the most important thing is that you make sure the funnel fits you. That's really important, that you make sure that the bit here fits your breast well and it's comfortable. So if it's tight, then you can go up a size.
So it'd be like that.
We tend to use a 30 size funnel because we can't keep a really good vast supply of them. But most pumps on the lower end of the market will provide you with a 24, which might be quite tight for some of you, and you might find that your response to giving milk is much less. So make sure that the funnel is not too tight, because if it is, you'll get a red area on your nipple area and it will be sore, but also you won't be getting much milk out, and that's not necessarily because you haven't got enough milk. It might be that you just can't stimulate your breast tissue enough to get the milk out of the breast. So make sure that you get it sized up properly. You've got
They
to
do
drill
works
it
again.
It
Always
doesn't all the time, but then
constantly
suddenly you've got
works.
to drill again.
And thinking about when you relate it back to hand expressing, and you know, when we teach you, we sit on these sessions about hand expressing, working your way back from the base of the nipple till you find that lumpy ridge within your breast, because here you will have very little resistance, and then you get to that point where there's resistance. That relates then to the pump kits. What we don't want is that your nipple is rubbing on here, and we want this outer part of the flange. You can see the bit here. We want that up against your areola, so it's putting pressure on your areola. It's not just at the base of your nipple, because that will make you sore. So it fits centrally in there. So with these pumps, the way they work with the 2 dials, we're always mimicking a baby. So we think about vacuum and cycle. So we start with a lowish vacuum, and it's going to squeak because the arm's twisted. Let me just put the arm back on. Right, so you start with a lowish vacuum, and the vacuum is the on as well, and fast cycles. So the mother would then put it on, and I don't know if you can see, but it is moving. You can just see the silicone breast moving in there.
And that's mimicking your baby doing that flutter suckling. And the
Okay.
very first, just when it goes on, it does a very small flutter to stimulate the response to let down.
And then as soon as you start seeing milk, like the hand pump, what you're going to do is you are going to up the vacuum to wherever is comfortable. Now that does not mean full on. Full on is probably far too much for the majority of women. So wherever is comfortable. And you're going to slow the cycles right down so that you have now got a high vacuum, low cycle, low rhythm, so it's going much slower now. That is the same as the baby going on, going chomp, 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 asking for the milk. It gets rewarded with the milk, you see the milk coming, and they go into long, deep sucks with pauses. This is the way you'll get the most from these pumps, this one or this one. So if any pump you use has got a cycle system on it, you want to start fast cycles, low vacuum, and then as soon as you start seeing milk, slow the cycles right down and up the vacuum to wherever is comfortable. We sometimes hear mums telling us they've been told to put the cycles right up and the vacuum right up. That is not going to get the best from the pump. You're not going to do particularly well.
They're quite small.
Yeah, very so much so. So cycles, slow cycles, comfortable vacuum. So I would suggest to people that they start cross-eyed with this pump, so they're facing inwards, and then they go cross-eyed the other way to try and remember what to do.
So if you're on the postnatal ward now watching, you can have a go if you want to use the pump. Just make sure you can see if it makes a difference while you're doing that. And we say pump 8 times in 24 hours, so that's really important that you know. But the other thing is that you do some hands-on pumping. So as the pump is suckling, is drawing, you squeeze your breast like we show you how to do when you are feeding your baby. And so what you can do is when you get a big handful of breast and squeeze when your baby's suckling, or when the pump is going.
Show that around. So that would be a compression, in and hold. And my fingers are holding the pump kit on. So it's like that. So I'm holding the pump kit on and it's in and hold. Now this is doing one pump kit, because we often recommend that you do 2 at the same time, because the one thing breasts do together is let down. So the oxytocin is coming onto the breast at the same time, and you let down in both breasts. So ideally you double pump. And with this pump, all that means is that you put a second kit into here. Just this bit flips out and a second kit goes into there. If you're going to double pump and you're on the wards, we will normally give you a tubey grip bra. We're very kind like that. We like giving you those lovely white stockings. I don't think we've got one with us, unfortunately. We like giving you those lovely white stockings. We like giving you net knickers and a tubey grip bra. It's lingerie by the NHS.
So hands free.
You may not want to keep it, but if you're at home, then an old crop top or an old bra, cutting the holes to fit the pump kits through, so it holds it on, so your hands are free, will really work, so that you can be in that position. You don't have to hold on all the time. It allows your hands to be free to do lots of compressions, really pressuring the breast, because the breast tissue goes right up into the sort of under the collarbone, right up in under the armpit, and you want to target the whole breast when you're really pushing your milk supply.
Some of you might find that you've got lumpy underarms when your milk comes in, and that's what we call the tail of Spence. It's just the end of your breast tissue, and it goes right into your armpit. So some people do get lumpy bits under their arms when they're breastfeeding, when the milk first comes in. But the compression is what we call hands-on pumping. So your hands are working your prolactin receptors in your breast as much as the pump is taking the milk out. And if you do that and you see the milk get better as you do the compressions, you can understand if you compress when you're feeding, which is what we talk about lots and lots and lots on these sessions about how to give your babies more and increase the flow. You can join the dots and think, oh yeah, when I do that when I'm pumping, I see more milk coming out. And exactly the same will happen when you're breastfeeding. More milk will go into your baby's mouth when you're compressing, and they will get a hit.
Yes, so you might just find that one particular spot for you, maybe it's here or here, and that works for you, and you can see more coming, then that's what you transfer over, and you know that your baby's going to be getting that bit much more milk, which is fabulous.
And then you're watching what your baby's doing as well when you do that, and that will help. But that you don't need to pump. That's the other thing we say. You don't need to pump. If everything's okay, you don't need to pump. But you might want to know how to do it if you're going out and you want to collect a bit of milk, or if you're you've got home and your baby's hungry and you're not able to attach at the breast. This is something that you can do to protect your milk supply, and it's really important that you do it 8 times in 24 hours, but you don't do it regularly, you do it frequently. So
and I can see a question that's come through that's totally relevant to all of this. Another reason that you might be pumping is because it's too painful to put the baby to the breast at the moment. And actually what you're going to do is do 2 fantastic things. You're going to maintain your supply, and you're going to feed your baby, and then hopefully things will improve and you can get your baby back to the breast. But I will come to your question in a minute, Kelly.
If your baby's separated, you're in the neonatal unit, then you will need to be doing this very, very quickly after you've given birth. So you'll be really, really hands-on if your baby's very premature, because your breasts have not had as long to grow in the pregnancy. If your baby's early, then you need to be doing really good early pumping if your baby is born prematurely, and so that might be suggested that you do hands-on pumping from day 0, and it might be that they start you with a pump and hand expressing at the beginning of your breastfeeding journey. That really will up your prolactin receptors and kickstart your supply, because you've got less prolactin receptors developed in your breasts because you were early. You've missed out on a trimester. So really important that you do that and you understand that. And you can get supported with videos. You can see if you look at hands-on pumping, Stanford University, there's a video link to show you how to do it. But also we have got a YouTube video from our end on the infant feeding page, which is the John Radcliffe website, going on to maternity services, onto infant feeding or breastfeeding, and then click onto resources, and you'll find that we have got some videos that you can watch as well about all of those things, and there's another video on how to use a breast pump as well. So do look at those if you're struggling. Hopefully this has helped. If you're on the ward already, have a go and see how it works. Come back to us in the hour session and tell us if it's been successful for you, but make sure you double pump.
Yeah.
If at all possible, double pump, because that will save you time and it will raise your prolactin levels so that you make more milk more quickly, and that's really important.
It's very effective, isn't it?
Yeah.
So think
I
about
hope that's helped.
root out an old bra or an old crop top that you can cut up and make into a Madonna Bra, as one of our lovely maternity support workers calls it, a Madonna Bra.
If you, the other thing we talk about is the hacker, which is like the little silicone bulb, and that's not a breast pump, that's a breast reliever. So it's there to collect drip breast milk, or if your breasts are a bit full before you feed, you can put it on and just take some of the fullness off around the area of the nipple. It's not for pumping, it's not a breast pump, it is a breast reliever, so it takes the fullness out of your nipples when your milk, particularly when your milk comes in, and mums quite often put one on one side while they're breastfeeding on the other and get drip breast milk out.
Some mums actually pump as well, don't they, at the same time? So they might have a hacker on one side, or an equivalent. There are quite a few with similar ones. They may have one of those on one side, and then they might be pumping on the other, because that's making the most of that letdown again, because both breasts will let down at the same time, and the silicone sort of breast relievers encourage leaking because they're held on by a vacuum, so they've got a vacuum there, and that's encouraging leaking. So it's quite a good way if you've got a single pump. If you want to collect milk on the other side and encourage milk removal. So many mothers will have a single pump on one side, have one of these hackers on the other because they're quite cheap, and then swap and then back again.
So word of warning if you're breastfeeding your baby and you use one on one breast when you're breastfeeding on the other is that you will take the milk out from your baby for the feed if you're swapping sides. So if you've done that and then you put your baby on the other side, remember you've drip milk out of your breast and collected maybe 30, 40, 50 mils out. Your baby's not going to get that unless you give it back in a feed. From a cup or whatever you're doing, or a bottle. So don't do it if you're going to breastfeed on both breasts, because your baby will miss out on the food that it needs. And the other thing to say is that it is dripped breast milk, so it's not pumped breast milk, so it will have less fat in it. So if you are pumping and you're doing collecting with a hacker, mix it up a little bit so that you've got a little bit more fat in the drip breast milk, so that your baby doesn't just get drip breast milk, because it won't. It's fine, it's fantastic, beautiful milk, but it's better to have a bit of fat in it as well. So
I always tell people it's fabulous because it's full of all those water-soluble vitamins, which are really important, and lots of sugar for brain growth, but it hasn't got the fat content that keeps your baby satisfied. Pudding. Exactly, it doesn't. It's like my husband trying to persuade me to eat a salad every lunchtime, and I want something a bit more substantial.
You're inspired to that.
Should we look at these two questions?
Yeah, we haven't get rid of this pump.
Yeah, we'll move that. So first, I would like to say hi to Alicia.
Hello, Alicia.
Because it was her first birthday last week, which is why Charlotte didn't come and say hello. Charlotte's, I think, watched our video session. She says, "Hi, ladies. Sorry I wasn't able to watch last week. My Alicia was 1 year old last Thursday. Hope you're okay." And Alicia was getting more teeth. She's taken to full-fat cow's milk in her stride, and she's got much better eating different foods. There you go. That's 1 year on. I think Charlotte's listened to almost every session and said hello to everyone.
Absolutely. It's been amazing.
Yeah, well
Lovely
done.
for us too.
Yeah, well done. Kelly's come on, and I said there's some very, very relevant questions. And they don't have to be relevant. If you're sitting out there, I can see there's lots of faces up there, and you're thinking, I want to ask, it's nothing to do with pumping, just go ahead, pop it up there.
Doesn't matter how daft the question is, because someone else will be thinking it.
Absolutely.
And we might say it.
Kelly has said, I'm exclusively pumping because breastfeeding is too painful for me. Do you have any tips for how to pump and bottle feed my baby at the same time? I wish. It's something I've always thought, because I used to be a pump agent as well, and I always thought we ought to have a system where it can just pump straight out, straight into the baby. But there isn't a way at the moment, is there? I'm afraid. Unless you want to do single pumping and you feed the baby, you hold the baby in one hand and you pump on one hand. I'm not sure there is a way around pumping and feeding at the same time, I'm afraid.
I mean, if you're going to feed your baby at a bottle, you can pump with the tube grip on or the bra on, and then your hands free, so it might help you just pump while your hands free. I mean, some people use LVs, don't they?
Yeah, the LV.
I shouldn't really be advertising anything, but they find them really, they take their head, mind off of pumping is a real chore, and you've been on that pumping triple feeding cycle. Some people find hands-free pumping with no wires and no sounds a bit easier to deal with, and so they're outrageously expensive. But
they're £249 each.
Yeah, and there is a cheaper version, I think, but
it's not a pump. It's a reliever, the LV one. I've had a look at it.
Really?
Yeah, it's not a pump.
Or a Chinese one of the LV.
Oh right, I haven't seen that one. No, so
some people do splash out and have one of those fancy ones, and they do find them very supportive for their mental health when they're pumping and they're on that cycle. So it's not easy, and certainly pumping and giving your baby food in a bottle is not the easy option.
No, you're doing
and it's not
so
something that most women want to do out of choice. They would desperately want to feed if they can.
Kelly, you say that this is the reason you're doing this is because it's painful. I'm just going to say, can someone offer you some support with that? I don't know how old your baby is, but is that something that perhaps you could come to breastfeeding clinic and we can see what's going on and see if there's a reason why it's painful. You may have exhausted everything so far, but I don't know that we've seen you. So do think about getting some support, because for the majority of people we can get feeding pain-free, and it is cutting out the middleman when you don't have to do the pumping. It's much easier. It would be a lot easier for you. But I think Naomi's idea of maybe using a crop top or a old bra would allow you to be hands-free, but obviously your baby can't be terribly close because you've got your pump kits there, and at least your baby won't knock them off. But have a think about contacting us. Jennifer has said, hi ladies, I've been using Nipple Shield since my daughter was a week old due to pain. She's 10 weeks old and still using them. My health visitor said they really should only be a short-term fix, and now she won't latch without. She's a very normal baby then.
I wouldn't worry about it in the slightest.
If she's gaining weight,
Yep.
and pooing away appropriate to her age and doing everything that you would expect her to do, and she feeds with the shield, then don't worry about it.
Don't get stressed by it. Your
No.
baby will do it when they're ready.
We have much more of an issue. I've had this conversation today in breastfeeding clinic with a mum. We have much more of an issue about mothers being given nipple shields in the early days, because that inhibits milk supply. So if you use a nipple shield in the first few days before your milk's really established, then actually you're going to really put yourself on the back foot when it comes to getting milk supply going. A nipple shield, if it's the only way your baby will attach, is serving a really good purpose. And assuming your baby is doing everything they need to and gaining weight, then we don't worry about it, do we?
No, we don't. I mean, we'd rather you were feeding your baby at the breast than pumping and giving it in a bottle, because that's a step nearer. And sometimes you go from giving babies express breast milk on a bottle or formula even while you're building your supply up to the breast, and the plastic is the driver with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the bottle is the plastic and the nipple shield is the plastic, and some babies won't go to the breast because they think that the breast is soft and squishy and they don't like that feeling. They hate change. One of the things you could try, and that is do it when your baby's very sleepy and happy, so not really hungry, so you would do it in a very stress-free way, and offer the nipple shield when your baby's on the nipple shield, and then while your baby's still suckling, you pull it off. I would say stick it up there quickly, put your baby back on the same breath, just let the flow come, so that they just start that glug, 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 and as soon as they've done 3 or 4 really deep glugs, you just pull it out their mouth and put them back on while they're still hungry, and often they will just go on the breast. The other way you can get them off is pretend that you've got a nipple shield on, and that's to make a sandwich, and you only do this when you're trying to get them on nipple shields or they've had lots of bottles or lots of plastic, and they get very concerned about the softness of the breast, and you just make a sandwich with your fingers like that, and you hold it when they're on. So you don't take the fingers away when they're suckling. You hold it on until they really get going, and leave it there and leave it there and leave it there. Leave your fingers really firm so that the breast feels really firm in your baby's mouth, and sometimes they will accept it that way. But you need to do it sort of when you've taken them off in the same breath, go there, and they will not notice that they've come off the nipple shield and gone on to the breast, and they will do it. They will do it, but only on their terms. So don't get worked up about it, because it's nothing you're doing wrong, it's the fact that they're just not ready to do it. Now some will do it after the first go and they don't care, and others will take it for a year, or 9 months, or 8 weeks, or whatever, but it's normal, and as long as your baby's reaching its milestones, there's no rules.
Well, Jennifer's come back and I can see it. She says she's gained 4.5 pounds in 10 weeks.
You're doing something right.
Yeah, so I think that's...
Pat yourself on the back and say, that's great. We're not purists here.
No.
So, if you're breastfeeding and it's all good and you're happy and your baby's happy, there's no problem going on.
Just go with it. It's definitely down to the baby. The agenda is the baby's agenda on this one. So the mother I spoke to this morning, I said when her daughter's ready, she'll come off them. But we can't tell you when that will be. So.
And sometimes you leave them behind, and you have a bit of a panic and your baby's starving and they eventually go on without them because you've left them at home. That does happen, and they will do it because you have to feed your baby. So it's not the great way to do it, but that's what happens sometimes. But have a go and do that, see if it helps. Be a bit sneaky.
Yeah. And
don't lose sleep over it.
Catching them when they're just waking up, is not a good time. When they're not expecting it, just catch them then.
Yeah.
So these are all the things that we tell people to try and just see. But we can't guarantee your baby will ever attach without it. But if your baby's doing that, Jennifer, she's doing brilliantly. We don't worry about it.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Especially now lockdown's going to come to an end a bit.
Yeah.
Go out and enjoy yourself.
Yes, you don't want to be stuck to a pump. We were talking about pumping, that's the only other option, isn't it? So,
just enjoy yourself.
So, and she's not uncommon. So many babies are like that. She's very normal.
Yeah.
Lisa has said baby Noah is 13 weeks and generally feeding is going well. Thank you all for your help. Recently, towards the end of the feed, Noah sometimes clamps down hard and shakes his head. Any tips to discourage as it's getting painful? Thank you. I bet it is.
And they learn that it's quite fun, isn't it, when you do it, because you make a response, so you have to sort of be very deadpan. when they do it. It's tricky. It may be that they're just sort of developing a new habit, you know, that they like, but also maybe their gums are a little bit sore and they're using that afterwards. They do it. They do it a lot, and they get
tends
sort
to
of
pass though, doesn't it? It tends to be a phase, and it tends to pass.
Yeah, I think don't react to it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, so if you're aware that head is beginning to shake, because babies do get a bit wriggly toward the end of the feed, then maybe just slide him off and see, you know. But I feel for you, because it's no fun. It's very, very, it can be really painful. Even though we're only talking gums here, it's still very painful. But yeah, poor you. Let's hope Noah stops soon.
This is a phase.
Yeah. Oh, Charlotte's come back on to tell us that Alicia's taking steps already. And she's moving a lot and loves sitting up. Isn't that lovely? She's really come on. Let's see what Robin has said. She's planning on breastfeeding with pumping also, so Dad can be involved. Is this something that's doable, or will the baby not feed from both breast and bottle?
Well, you never know until it happens.
Yeah.
Some babies do have breast refusal if they have a bottle. Some don't care.
So, you know, we would normally suggest that you get your milks, you get breastfeeding established, don't add a bottle in too early, you know, make sure you've got your milk supply, and then think about the bottle. And that's where, you know, having talked about pumps, if you're just doing the occasional feed, you know, maybe you want to pump in the morning when you have more milk, which is when most women have the most milk, then something like this, a hand pump, will be perfectly adequate. Just to do the odd feed, so you might want to pump in the morning and your partner can give a feed later in the day. And if you think your baby, you know, you think in the long run you need your baby to take a bottle, then introducing a bottle, you know, not too late is also handy, but try not to do it in the first couple of weeks. So after the first couple of weeks, get breastfeeding established before you really go for it. We do talk about pumping. We've been talking about it later today. And that's predominantly for the people who are really struggling with the supply, or a baby is not attaching, or they're really sore. But if you can get breastfeeding going well, then the bottle can come a little bit later. Don't leave it too long, but it can come a bit later.
You need to get a bottle to give food, get one.
Yeah.
It takes about 6 weeks to establish breastfeeding, so you know, the later you leave it, the better. But I know a lot of people are keen to get partners involved, and we have had sessions talking about the role of partner. But there's many other things that they can do apart from just feeding the baby. So, you know, let them do other things before you start introducing the bottle if you've only just got going. The problem with giving bottles to babies is the flow is different.
Yeah.
So when you give the bottle, the flow is constant and quite fast from the beginning to the end of the bottle. And when you feed with the breast, the flow is very fast to start with, and then as the breast drains, it gets less and less down to a trickle. And if they get frequent bottles, and it might only be 1 or 2 bottles for some babies, they will then recognise that the flow has changed, and they will start to pull and squirm at the breast and get cross and cry because the flow is going. And that's the problem with bottle. It's not actually the teat in the mouth that's the problem. Generally, it's the flow that is the problem, and when you start giving babies bottles, the flow changes, and if they get frequent bottles, and the breast has got a lower supply, for instance, because your baby is, you know, you're building up your supply for one reason or another, then your baby notices quite often, and this is when we start talking about compressions and giving your baby a bit more of a hit. So when your baby's feeding, you give it a bit more of a squeeze, and your breast is a bit like a bottle. It keeps that flow going for a bit longer, and those sort of things are very helpful. But you can't tell until you've given your baby a bottle what's going to be the response. It might be that your baby will only let you do 1 bottle and that's it. They won't go back to the breast easily. Or some don't care what goes in their mouth.
I think we find,
go on and off the
you know, we
breast
do find most babies can cope.
Yeah.
They do cope.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say is not rushing into using a bottle as a first feed if you're wanting to breastfeed, because, you know, that's certainly when we talk about that first feed after birth, it's a priming feed. And for us, it's always a huge sense of relief when we have somebody come and see us and they're having breastfeeding problems, and they say that their baby fed at the breast at birth. If their baby fed at the breast at birth, then the likelihood is their baby is going to be able to do it again, even if they've had problems since. It's literally a priming, it's an imprinting feed, and it's absolutely imperative for that, you know, that baby knowing what to do at the breast. We don't mind whether they get milk or they don't get milk at that stage. Their need is not milk at that point in time, but it's that learning what to do which is so important, and associating.
And it's the stimulation of the breast tissue as well.
Very, very.
But I think the other thing that we could talk about at this point, which leads on to that, is your nipple shapes. And you know, if you're told you've got flat nipples, which is not something that we worry about, your baby doesn't know anything other than your breast. So if you only offer your breast and you don't put nipple shields or teats in your baby's mouth, then they're going to be perfectly happy. And actually, most women's nipples aren't flat when they get cold or when they're licked. So if a baby's nibbling your nipples, it's going to start to stick out. And once they start suckling, it's going to get more prominent. And over a period of time, you'll find that your nipples aren't at all flat. But, you know, they're not flat. And actually, most Caucasian women don't have nipples that stick out. Certainly, you know, British white people don't tend to have nipples that stick out. So we would expect you to have nipples that are flat, as in they don't stick out as normal. So we don't talk about flat nipples, and you know, your nipples are normal, and they're normal for you and your baby, and that's all your baby knows. They don't know anyone else's nipple. So you know, just trust that your body is normal. And they're breastfeeding. They're not nipple feeding. They're putting the nipple in the mouth to put the milk in the mouth, but the breast is the predominant bit that needs to go in the mouth. And if you look at the booklets and the pictures, we've got them. No,
Which one are you looking for?
that one.
Okay.
You know, it's breastfeeding. Baby's mouth is going on the breast here. The nipple is going to the back of the roof of the mouth. Here, it's going on the breast, and that's why it's not the nipple that is actually the most important thing. The baby needs to get here. That's the most important thing, to milk the breast, to get the milk out of the nipple, which goes to the top of the back of the roof of the mouth, right to the baby's throat. And the milk is put down the throat from the nipple. But actually, this is the bit that's important to stimulate. So it doesn't matter what shape the nipples are. At the end of the day, your baby will breastfeed, which is the milk is stimulated from the breast. So then they want to get this bit in their mouth. This just puts the milk in the mouth. So you want to be really stimulating that bit there underneath. That's where they need to be. So it doesn't matter if you've got big nipples, little nipples, whatever nipples. It's not the way the breast is worked. It's breastfeeding.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the place that the milk comes out.
So putting a nipple shield on day 0 or day 1 because somebody said to you your nipples are flat is going to create a lot of problems.
That's why we're saying,
Exactly. And so, and also they get 30% less milk through nipple shields, so that if you've just got colostrum and you've only got 0.1 of a mil of colostrum, which is what we talk about in syringes, your baby's going to get less. You can't see me, I know.
So that's what we're talking about. It inhibits milk supply, and also if you think about a priming, you know,
if you only got this much and you've got a nipple shield on, nothing's going to go into your baby's mouth at all. You're going to lose it all.
And it goes back to the thing about the priming. If the first thing that's in a baby's mouth is a nipple shield or a bottle, then that's what they're expecting. That feel is what they're expecting, which is why we avoid them as much as possible. So which is why when it's colostrum, we're going to be using a syringe, or you know, we may use a cup or whatever, or even a teaspoon, but we are going to avoid trying to use a nipple shield or a bottle in the first few days whilst your baby learns what breastfeeding is all about.
If you're really struggling, you could try using a hacker or a bit of hand expressing to just bring little drops of milk forwards, so they get milk around the nipple, and it sometimes just brings the nipple a little bit out because it's been stimulated.
Yeah.
So that might help you a little bit, but you don't have to do anything else.
So this carries on. We've got great themes, a great continuity today, as if we'd already asked.
Primed them.
Yeah, absolutely. Philippa said, hello both. You mentioned the hacker takes milk away from the baby, so not to use it if you're feeding from both breasts. Is that the same with pumping? Can you pump while feeding? Also, is there a good time to pump, i.e. after feeding, or leaving time between? I'm pumping so that Dad can help with feeds a bit. Thank you. I think we've already mentioned often you have more milk than you need in the morning. That is a really good time to do it. And you would pump after the feed. So you feed the baby and then you pump. And that's what we would normally do anyway. When we've got mothers who are trying to build their milk supplies up, you know, they're struggling with their milk supply, we feed the baby, then they pump. So it's usually in that order. What we're doing is we're going to remove the milk the baby hasn't yet removed. And if we're trying to push the supply, then that's what we're saying to the body is what we've already taken off is not enough. We want more than that, and we want more and more and more. So think about after feeds.
The more you take out, the more you make
Yeah.
in the early days.
Yeah, that's how the supply works, which is why we use pumping as well as breastfeeding. And sometimes, on occasions, depending how things are going, we might say to a mother, if they're really struggling with the weight gain of their baby, to actually prioritise the pumping and not the feeding. And if they're in a situation where they have to choose one or the other, then actually they may want to pump rather than feed. Because sometimes the baby is not doing as good a job as the pump will do.
If it's a little bit early, so if the baby's 36, 35 weeks, 37 weeks, and it's not a really vigorous feeder, or it's been jaundiced, for instance, or been poorly, they're not going to be stimulating you as well as they would do if it was a term baby that was, your baby was very well. So the pumping is your driver for that one, and suckling follows. But what you can do is, we rarely see people with too much milk in clinics. It's, if you've got lots of milk, you can do anything, but if you don't have milk and your baby's not suckling, it's really, really heartbreaking. So, protect your supply in the early days, and as Alex said, pumping does it if your baby doesn't do it.
Yeah. And we do see an awful lot of women who don't have enough milk, sadly, and if we could change what happened at the beginning, then possibly they would have had a bit more. So Philippa, I hope that helps. So, first thing in the morning is really good after the feed, and then after the feed at other times. What you will find is come the evening, the likelihood is you will not get anywhere near as much milk. But don't be upset, because that's fine. Your baby gets what they need.
And if you don't use your other breast when you're breastfeeding, then that's fine to take it out with a pump, but you're going to make it if you pump frequently, and then your breast will expect to be pumped all the time if you're doing it with a feed. And so don't do it too frequently if your feeding is going well. But also, if you're going to feed on the other side, don't take it out of the breast, because your baby's going to get it from your breast, and that's the best place for it to come out of, into your baby's tummy, not into a pump.
Yeah, so that's what I mean about after the feed.
Yeah.
Charlotte's come back and said Alicia is 17 pounds. I'm hoping I'm reading that right. I know I should understand pounds and ounces, but actually I'm so metric.
That's lovely.
So, but well done. I'm sure she's gorgeous. Lisa's come back. She was the one with the baby was biting. He does a cheeky smile when he does it.
Don't react to it. Just don't react to it.
A little horror.
Yeah. As soon as you start squeaking or saying don't do that, he'll do it more. Just pretend he hasn't done it, and take him off before he's finished if necessary.
Philippa's come back and said she's just doing it for 1 or 2 feeds. The hacker works well for me in the morning, but maybe from what you're saying, a hand pump might be better. It may be, only because you haven't got that same balance of the fat in there, Philippa. So it depends what you're using it for, but it's encouraging leaked milk, and leaked milk, drip milk, is not as doesn't have such a high fat content. So that's why we're saying it. I think Philippa's come back again. Actually, thank you. That's really helpful. She's put. Emily has said, my baby's 5.5 weeks and I'm breastfeeding. I feed a lot in the evenings and she sleeps then for about 4 hours. Then after that, middle of the night feed, she's so noisy and grunting and thrashing around. We were talking about this earlier, weren't we? Noisy babies. I keep her upright for 10 to 20 minutes after, but nothing seems to help. She's sleeping through her noise, but I'm not. Is there anything I can do to help her go back down quietly? Oh, I wish there was. They're unbelievable. I can't believe I remember having my first and thinking it was like having an old man in the bedroom. There's so much noise.
Yeah, they are noisy, and you're distracted during the day, so you don't notice it so much.
Yeah.
You've got TV or radio on, or you're carrying them about and they're distracted from it, and it's just perfectly normal.
Yeah. I wish I could come up with an answer, Emily. Quite funny. Hannah and Naomi's just said about earplugs, but maybe not.
Not a good idea. Yeah.
No, yeah. I think the babies can be very, very noisy. I've said this on these sessions many a time. There's no holds barred with babies. When it comes to babies, if they're feeling something, they tell you all about it.
It'll pass, literally.
Yeah, literally. So I'm really sorry, and you've actually described perfect cluster feeding, that she feeds a lot in the evenings, and then you get a 4-hour break, and that's really common. That's, we talk about cluster feeding, and the idea is always that it means they're going to go that little bit longer afterwards. So I'm delighted to hear you're managing to cope with those cluster feeds, because that's you're dealing with them exactly as we would hope you would, so that's fantastic. But I'm really sorry about the noise. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. I think in time you will get more used to it. So I know she's 5.5 weeks already.
Their gut's just getting used to all that milk, and they start pooing a bit less on about between 5 and 6 weeks. So they go frequently, lots and lots of poos, and then suddenly they stop pooing quite as much from about this age. So it might be that the gut's changing a little bit and they're absorbing more milk at that point, and it might settle down. But they sort of probably feeling a little bit imbalanced if they've been pooing all the time and then suddenly they stop pooing as much and their tummy feels a bit more gripey or fuller. So it just might be that their gut's changing at this time. It's about the time that they do that. So you might have noticed they're not pooing quite so much now.
Pauline has come back about partners helping. She said, I heard one mum say how her partner was involved by picking up the baby when she was hungry and helping to attach her to the breast and making the mum comfortable. And that is a very good job to do too. So making sure mum's got a drink. It's amazing how when a mum sits down to feed, the oxytocin is released, and many mums have very, very thirsty when that happens. So
it's obsessive.
Yeah, so making sure you've got a drink by your elbow, maybe the remote control, and that you're comfortable. Something under your feet, something supporting your wrist. There are so many things a partner can be doing. But I also appreciate that some partners might like to give some express breast milk. So, so
put a
it's
jug of cold water in the fridge, and when you go to sit down with your baby, get the jug of cold water in the glass and put it by you, because we will just dream of it otherwise, and it's really hard.
So that was a good suggestion, Paulina. So Pauline's just come back, so she thought it was a brilliant way for the partner to help and feel involved. I think it's a very good way.
Works for you, it's fun.
Charlotte has said, she said her confidence has built up so much as being a mum, and I think that's very true, Charlotte, for all mums, certainly first time mothers, and certainly through this year that we've had, where you've had so little support, you build that confidence, and when it comes to maybe having another baby, if you are, actually you'll find your confidence levels are somewhere completely different. It'll be a completely different experience. So Philippa said thank you, that was really helpful. Charlotte said as well, thanks for all the support and all the other midwives to get her through the year. And so, she couldn't have done it if it wasn't for all of us.
You did all the hard work though.
Yeah, we were just here cheering from the sidelines. Emily has said thank you, at least it's normal. Feels like every night is spent next to a small dinosaur. At least there's a coffee in the morning.
Well, if they're sleeping,
Emily.
it's a shame you can't sleep through it, isn't it?
It's
Perhaps
so,
learn to do that when you're more relaxed and think, he's not going to wake up.
it's so difficult. They can be so noisy, it's true. And you get the ones who are really noisy when they're feeding as well, don't you? The ones who make a squeak noise. So, anyway.
They'll do it.
Philippa's come back. Her baby's 4 weeks and exactly the same. Like sleeping next to a goat. Glad it's normal.
You see, you're not going to toddler groups, so you can't stop stories. That's the problem.
I was thinking exactly the same. This is what this is replacing. Is that normally you would be able to go out to groups, whether it's Oxfordshire breastfeeding support groups or baby cafes or any of these organisations.
They had a session this morning, didn't they? OBS, so they had
an online
session, mum and baby session. We're your baby and toddler groups, aren't we? Now?
Yeah, so just saying what's normal.
Things.
Just saying. I mean, there's so many things, and certainly when those sort of organisations are up and running, it's really great because you can pair people up.
And maybe have peer group sessions where you meet people and then you meet online and chat to each other in a Zoom.
And it's good to know, when you are having contact with other people who've got babies, and they'll tell you that it's taking them 3 hours to get out the door just to get down to an appointment, or they didn't get dressed until 4 in the afternoon and then couldn't be bothered actually and didn't shower for 2 days. That's all really normal too. And I think mothers, sometimes are surprised. They hear it and don't believe it can be true, but it is true. It really is true. It's amazing how much time a newborn baby takes.
Don't get dressed for the midwife unless you have to leave the
No,
house.
she won't mind. She'll be delighted. And she'll be also delighted to see your house isn't terribly tidy and the washing up's not all necessarily done. They don't want to come and see a spotless house. They want to know that
We'd be more worried if we saw a spotless house.
Yeah. They're very happy to come in and see you in your bedroom and support you there.
Pyjamas with grungy hair.
Yeah, because then they know that you're priority is the baby and you and sleep rather than what your house looks like. So, but, just going to nip up again. I've seen some questions come through. Leanne Avis, we know you, Leanne. You've got a goat and a dinosaur like Lyra. Sounds like a goose with her nighttime bonking. Love it. I can't imagine Lyra.
Baby orchestra here.
Baby being like a goose. She's so cute.
Dinosaur, goat and geese.
She's an absolute poppet, little Lyra. She's very lovely. Right, and then Charlotte's got another one. She's she's thinking of another baby once she's had her COVID jab. So, but she's needle phobic, so hopefully she'll cope. Have we got any more questions? We've got 10 more minutes, and then we'll sign off. So it's we thought there might be more questions today because the weather's so rubbish. Thank you for all the advice from Paulina. As a student midwife, I wish I could help more. Paulina. But,
I'm sure you're already helping.
I'm sure as long as you're giving, and it's lovely that you're watching this as well. So because it helps make sure you're giving out the right information, Paulina. So
we've done lots now, haven't we?
Yeah.
52, 53.
Yeah, probably.
Like
we've only missed a few. We're well over a year now.
Yeah, so it's thousands of people have watched them, which is great. It's a very good resource.
Actually, it'd be quite interesting to know how did you all know about them? How did you know about these sessions? Because we were talking about whether we need to promote them. Paulina's come back saying she's learning so much. How do we need to promote them? Because obviously we're aware there's so little out there for people. Did you find out about them from your midwives, or was it just through MVP? Do we need to promote them through the midwifery service? Do we need all community midwives to tell people about them? Would that help? So it'd just be interesting to know how you found out about these sessions.
We know some people are from Oxfordshire though, so there are people from further afield. I think friends and sisters, they've passed the information on to other people, and so using them in different areas, and I think that's great. It gets the word out and make sure that people know how to get support locally to them if they know that they can go and get help from their midwives early. And that's really important, how people have come across that.
Yeah, we've just had one. Catherine's just said her community midwife told her in there, Watlington. So that's good to know. Yeah, because we did wonder whether we need to sort of plug it a bit more, so see whether people, because obviously, people, apart from our lovely mummy Felicia, she, from Charlotte, most people come in for a bit and then dip out again, so it's constantly changing. I'm just going to go and nip up the questions again because I did see one come through and it was relevant to everything we've just been talking about. Michelle has said, my baby makes a lot of noise when she sleeps. Is this normal? Lots of moaning, groaning and grunting. Absolutely, that's what we're talking about with the goats, the dinosaurs and the geese. So yes, it's
what does yours sound like?
It's really normal to have a baby making quite a lot of noise. Absolutely. I said I felt like I had an old man in the bedroom. So
some snore as well. When they're really just settling and in deep sleep. They shouldn't snore very much, but they do make funny noises like that.
Yeah. Sophie said, my baby and I'm not sure which one of us it is, get a weird squeaky noise when he's feeding. Is it okay? He's 4 weeks old and breastfeeding is going really well after a little bit of help from the Wallingford unit. Squeaky noise is much more likely to be the baby, I'd have thought.
It's more if you've got lots of milk and as the letdown comes to go. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Because that's babies breathing in. They can't swallow, breathe at the same time, so they have to coordinate it. And often they do make that noise when they're pausing and they're getting lots and lots of milk, and it sounds quite normal if that's what it is.
And I'm glad you got help from Wallingford. Our community teams are fantastic. They offer some great support. Rachel's come through and said her community midwife told her at the booking appointment about Facebook Lives.
Oh, great.
So that's good news. Charlotte's saying she'd like to be a midwife, but she's needle phobic. Might be difficult. So not that I have to take blood. We don't have to take blood anymore because we're not doing that sort of midwifery, but we used to have to do. So but you can get over these things. I have to say, I didn't think I would want to do them, but it was fine when I got on with it. Michelle says her baby sounds like all three.
You need to all swap stories, don't you?
It's wonderful.
Perhaps we should have a session on noisy babies and play it all out so we can see.
Yeah, but that's fantastic. Right, I think we're going to be almost done. We've got 6 minutes left if there's any other questions. But so Anything else?
And if,
anybody
if
wants to
there's
ask?
anything else you want us to go through, so
Yeah,
give us the
post
message,
us.
post it on and say what you'd like to have, something that you'd find very useful that we can bring to the forum maybe next week and talk to it, because we sit there talking all week about what we're going to talk about this week, and we do what's trending on the street, so if we get lots of run of something happening in the hospital, then we'll talk about it online in Facebook, because I think it's very relevant if suddenly we're getting a run of things. But if something has come up and you want to know about anything about feeding in particular, then let us know and we can have a session on it. We can talk about it and say, okay, this week we're going to talk about, and it's dedicated to that one thing. If some people are, partly the session can be about that, which some people might find very helpful. The thing is that, some weeks we have it and it's all about antenatal expressing, and we get nothing but antenatal expressing questions, and that's brilliant. We have to run, and today it's been quite a lot about pumping, which is really great as well. But if you think of something that you would like us to talk about, then let us know, because it would be really helpful. And if you've had lots of friends that have had the same thing, put it to us.
I'm just checking through because some bits will come back. So Sophie came on. So Sophie was one whose baby was making noises at the breast. So she said, yes, I think one side is a bit over enthusiastic. Thank you. So that means the letdown's quite forceful. So the baby's probably struggling a little bit to keep up.
Yeah.
And they can be quite noisy when that happens.
You could try popping a baby on a teeny bit deeper and see if that reduces the flow in that side. It might be your less dominant side, where you've taken a bit longer to get going with the breastfeeding. Well, it sounds like you're doing amazingly well and got it right, but you could try a little bit deeper, and that might help the oversupply, the forceful letdown. It might help him deal with the suck, swallow, breathe a bit.
Catherine said, thank you, this session's been great, due to have my baby in the next couple of weeks. And with inverted nipples, I've been concerned about whether I can breastfeed, but you've given me lots of tips to try. Yeah. So just believe that your baby has never met another set of breasts. They have no preconceived ideas of what a breast is going to be, and despite what anyone might tell you, just give your baby the chance. Your baby may very well do perfectly well.
So everyone will make milk until they don't. So we assume that you will make milk as normal and feed your baby as normal.
And your baby will attach.
And we talk about new dance partners all the time in breastfeeding, because everyone's got two left feet to start with. Sometimes both of you've got two left feet, and sometimes just one of you's got two left feet. But at the end of the day, you all start dancing together and it works. So, and you look fabulous at the end of it. So, everyone comes to it in a different way, in a different time scale.
Yeah. Virginia's come on and said, hi ladies, my baby's almost 2 weeks old, the feeds are exhausting, he's asking for more as soon as I take him off. Any suggestions how to extend times between feeds, please? Well, I think it depends really what's happening, Virginia, with regard to weight. Is your baby gaining appropriate to age? So your baby have been gaining since day 5 onwards, and this is a little boy, so we would be wanting him to gain in the region of 30 grams every single day. If he's not doing that, then he might be looking for more food, and it's remembering that breastfeeding is way more than just food. There's a lot going on there. Babies don't expect to be put down. Babies do not expect to be in a cot, a pram or a chair. They want to be in your arms. And if your baby's gaining as well as much as we'd expect, then maybe thinking about a sling would be a good thing to do, because that meets your baby's needs for closeness and comfort. Any thoughts on that? Anything like that?
And we'd expect him to be on his birth weight by about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'd expect him to have gained his birth weight by now. So if that's not happening, you probably ought to give us a call.
Yeah.
And see if we can just listen to your story a little bit more and put some things in place for you. Are you under your midwife still? Can you get the midwives to help you go along to an appointment to get face-to-face? Or, OBS or La Leche League can help as well.
I'm thinking,
not face-to-face at the moment.
Poos and wheeze, is your baby doing 2 yellow stools minimum per day and 6 heavy-wet nappies? So all of those things, because a baby that's constantly looking for food can be a hungry baby, but it could also be a baby that just wants to be held. So as I said, some babies just don't want to be put down, and many babies don't want to be put down. So it's working that out.
Maybe the attachment is not quite perfect, and there's always room for improvement. Even when it's perfect, we can say you can do better.
There's always room.
There's always room for improvement. So it may be that you need to tweak your positioning very, very slightly, and that might improve your baby's outcome. And they may go a bit longer and drain the breast a bit more effectively, and then that they also get their oral needs met if they've got a lovely big mouthful of soft breast and their cheeks are full.
Right, he's gaining weight, nearly at his birth weight, full nappies. I'll try the sling, thanks. Yeah, it might just be that he just wants that closeness and comfort. They really don't like being put down. I always say to mums, it's a bit, if you think about this baby, your baby doesn't know they're safe unless they're in your arms. They think that there might be lions and tigers around, and they want to be cuddled, they want to be in your arms. And remember that all those cuddles, every time you cuddle your baby, stroke your baby, talk to your baby, sing to your baby, you're boosting their brain with oxytocin. Oxytocin is flowing through their body, and you are building a happy baby that will become a happy toddler, a happy child, happy adult. So you're doing some great work for their future mental health. Growing their brain for a happy attached baby. So keeping them close, using
they
the sling.
expect to be. They come out and they expect to be there. And if you think of all other mammals, their babies, particularly things like monkeys and chimpanzees and things, their babies don't put their feet on the ground for about 18 months. They just cling to their mummies, and your baby's fingers are like this all the time. They're expecting to be on hair because we were hairy back in the day, and we were attached. So babies want to be attached. They're expecting to be clinging to your fur. So having them close is going to really make your day much better. And you can do cooking, and you can do hoovering and washing up. And
the wonders of slings is they don't just have to be front facing, they can actually be rear facing. As they get older, babies can go on your back as well, and that's absolutely fantastic because it meets your baby's needs, and from that point of view they work really well, don't they?
I'm not sure the sling libraries are working at the moment, but they may start fairly soon, and you can sort of go and see all the different slings available, and if someone's listening and knows, they can perhaps put us right on that one. But there normally is a sling library in the north of the county and in Oxford as well. Maybe there is one even in the south.
I think there's one in Abingdon actually.
Yeah, so there's sling libraries where you can actually try different slings and see if they
do a Google search.
Google
search for sling library.
Yeah.
One of our colleagues, she's got about 3, hasn't she? She's got different ones because she likes them.
Beautiful colours.
Charlotte's just come back saying her baby's much better at night now. She's actually a bit older, so that makes a difference. Paulina, the student midwife, has come back and said, Charlotte, one of my fellow students is needle phobic. She nearly fainted the first time she took blood. She's in the 2nd year now. So you see, you can get over it. So I remember the first time I watched an epidural being sighted, I didn't feel very well. Naomi's not laughing because I came to it later in life. Naomi's been a midwife for a lot longer than me, so she thinks it's funny.
In 41st year.
Yeah, and I'm in my 11th. So, Charlotte's just gone, so she could do it. Exactly. You can all have a late career. You'll be much younger than I was when I qualified, so there's plenty of time. Barbara said, I'm here with my 2-week-old baby, and after some initial difficulties to latch, she was feeling very well. Having yesterday night, she started to get off one breast repeatedly in a suck release. So I'll just put it up pattern. This was annoying for both of us, and I ended up pumping that side overnight rather than feeding. Is it possible that she's getting off that breast when it's too full or firm, or any other ideas? Being full and firm can make a difference, can't it?
They don't like the feeling of that hardness if they've been used to soft breast. How old did you say her baby was?
Let me have a quick peek.
It's early days. It's often when your milk
2
is
weeks
coming. Yeah, so it's just about draining your breast well and damping down the supply a bit if you're really, really full. And that happens over time in good positioning and attachment. The supply will damp down a little bit, and your breast may not feel quite so full, which makes it easy. But you could just take a little bit off till your breast's soft. That might be 5 mils, and then your nipple area is quite soft for your baby.
And the milk supply regulates itself. We talk about establishing milk supply within the first 6 weeks, and certainly by about 6 weeks, most women find that they're not getting that really full feeling anymore. And some people see that as a negative, they worry, but it isn't at all. It's your milk supply is calibrated to your baby's needs. So you're now not producing more than you need. So, from that point of view, you'll find it will get easier. And just because your baby's had a bad night one night does not mean that's going to carry on. Babies can be like that. They can have a good feed and a bad feed, and then no more bad feed. So, just be optimistic and hope it won't be like that again. Paulina's just come back saying, this is our student midwife, she only fainted twice when she was watching some suturing, but now she's absolutely fine. She realised she was holding her breath, but she realised it didn't help.
Probably had her legs crossed as well.
Yeah. Virginia, I think, already said her baby was gaining nicely. Nearly as birth weight, full nappies. I'll try the sling. Perfect. And Charlotte's been thanking the others for the comments. And Charlotte's waving at us. So
We'll wave back.
We'll wave back. I think we're there, ladies.
Post your questions
Yeah,
for next
gentlemen.
week. Come and think of lots of things that you might like us to do.
Yeah. And just keep us posted. Where did you hear about these sessions, so we know who's been told and who isn't. So.
Yeah.
And check out our videos. As we've said, we won't win any Oscars for those videos, but they do provide the information. A lot of what we've talked about today is covered, including pumping. If you go do a search, OUH, as in Oxford University Hospitals, OUH maternity feeding, it comes up, and you'll find our webpage, and under the resources there's a link to the maternity playlist, it's called. And there are videos there. Alright, till next week.
Have a good week.
Yeah.
I think it's going to rain every day, so that'll cheer you up, won't
Oh,
it?
marvellous.
You can sit and watch our YouTube videos.
Just when we're allowed to go out and eat at places it's raining.
Exactly. Anyway, have a good week, and we'll speak to you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.